we woke up and made a trade, and boy, is it a good one. Welcome to the Heat Report by Chat Sports. I am your host, Nic Rohloff. You see it at the bottom of your screen. Miami stuns their fan base for sure and gets Norman Powell in a 3-team deal with the Los Angeles Clippers and Utah Jazz. And I've been a little bit bleak on this front office, but it's hard to deny that this was just an exceptional move by Andy Ellisberg, Adam Simon, Pat Riley, and the rest of the crew. They get Norman Powell, the Clippers get John Collins from the Jazz, and Utah receives Kevin Love and Kyle Anderson from the Miami Heat, in a second-round pick from the Clippers. So, yes, you are not mistaken. The Miami Heat landed Norman Powell. Yep, Norman Powell for just Kevin Love and Kyle Anderson. I have been waiting so long for the Heat to make this good of a trade where it's like right off the bat, a no doubt winning of a deal. And boy, did they. Let's go, Pat. And I'll tell you what, folks, this is why you subscribe, because when the Heat make a move, when they make a trade, we will go live on the channel. We're filming this live on the channel, and you might have missed our live reaction to the deal. Well, that's because you got to be subscribed and turn on notifications, so make sure you do for daily content and live shows when we make moves. I mean, Norman Powell is a player that was legitimately considered for an all-star bid last season. He was absolutely phenomenal for the Clippers as their third option behind Kawhi Leonard and Norman Powell. James Harden. And you could maybe make the argument that it was him or Ivica Zubac. Either way, Powell had an incredibly efficient season, averaging 21.8 points per game, shooting 48.4% from the field, and 41.8% from beyond the arc. You lost Duncan Robinson earlier in this free agency period in a sign-and-trade with the Detroit Pistons. There was a glaring hole on this Heat roster with perimeter shooting because, if we're going to be honest, the only capable and three-point shooters you had that struck fear in your opponent was Tyler Herro. But that is an issue if he is your only guy. Well, now Norman Powell is a guy that strikes fear. This is a player that shot, like I mentioned, 41.8% from three last season. And it's not like he shot 3-4 attempts a night. No, he was getting that thing up. He's shooting 7 threes a game. And he shot 42% from beyond the arc. He shot 48% from the field. This was as an efficient scorer as you could actually have imagined. And ready for this statistic as well, folks, coming in from Synergy Basketball, Norman Powell was the 6th most efficient scorer in the NBA last season among 68 players who used over 18 possessions per game. He also shot 45% on movement threes while shooting 40% from three on spot-ups. This is absolutely a player who is on par with Duncan Robinson in terms of their shooting ability. I think Duncan's a top 5, top 10 shooter in the NBA. There's no question about that. But I think Norman Powell is right there in the top 10. I mean, you heard it, 45% last year on movement threes, 40% on spotting up, and you go back to his last 4 seasons where he spent 3.5 years in Los Angeles with the Clippers, half a season in Portland, and he has shot at worst 39.7% from three over the last 4 years. In his worst season, by the way, is averaging 14 points a game. This is a player that consistently shoots over 45% from the field and 40% from three. You are getting incredible efficiency into that backcourt at a massive need. You needed shooting. You did. And you get one of the best available for Kyle Anderson and Kevin freaking Love. I mean, these were two players that I legitimately said I don't want on the roster. Like, I would be willing to cut them because they are taking up roster spots from players that could actually benefit this team. You didn't need to cut them because you flipped them for Norman Powell. I am having a hard time really coming to the realization that a team would legitimately send us Norman Powell for Kevin Love and Kyle Anderson straight up. I mean, that you just can't do anything but clap for Pat Riley. I don't know how he did it, but boy, oh boy, the Godfather might be back. And you know what? He might be exonerated in my eyes in terms of slander. I'm not slandering Pat Riley for a year unless they do something really, really dumb. But that's how good of a move this actually was. And if you're hyped for Norman Powell to be in the 305, joining this Heat roster, hit that thumbs up icon. Right now, I want to welcome Norman to the 305. If he happens to see this, I want him to know he's very, very welcome here by Heat fans. Hit that thumbs up icon right now. The question that this does pose next for Miami, and we'll round out the show with a couple conversations here. We'll talk about Norman's fit with this Heat roster and where he will likely slot in, and then we'll also talk about briefly what move could be coming next. Full video on that coming out probably tomorrow. But when it comes to Norman Powell, it's going to be a tough decision. Like, do you start Norman or do you bring him off of the bench? My heart says bring him off the bench. My mind says start your best five. And who knows what Miami ultimately does the rest of this offseason? Do they end up trading Andrew Wiggins to the Lakers now? Or do they just trade Rozier for a backup center? And that's kind of where it goes to what could be next for Miami. But let's just say you keep Andrew Wiggins and you keep Norman Powell. Your starting lineup could consist of Herro, Powell, Wiggins, Bam, and Ware. That is a very versatile and solid lineup. Duncan Robinson was a great shooter, but he was a traffic cone defensively. Norman Powell, am I going to sit here and act like he's the best defender in the world? No, not even close to the case. But is he significantly better than Duncan Robinson? Yes, he is. So I believe that's an upgrade with the defensive side, even if you don't even want to think about him being that much better offensively, which he is. So if you have a starting lineup of those five I mentioned, Herro, Powell, Wiggins, Bam, and Ware, that is a legit starting five. And then your bench unit is sixth man Davion Mitchell, seventh man Nikola Jovic, eighth man Haywood Highsmith, ninth man Pallel Larson, 10th man Jaime Jaquez Jr. Or did I already say Jaime? I don't know. Either way, you have Pallel, Haywood, Jaime, Davion, and Jovic with your first five off the bench. And then you could have Fontecchio there. You have Kashad Johnson there. You still got Rozier, but you got to probably flip him for a backup big because you don't have a true backup center at this point. That roster is competitive in the East. It is. Is it a championship winning roster? Absolutely not. But you are in that next tier of teams. I have consistently said that the top five teams in the East, in my opinion, where we're at in the offseason, is in no order the Cavs, Knicks, Magic, Hawks, and Pistons. Those are my top five. But then you have these next tier of teams. Milwaukee at 6. And I'm not going to rank them. But Milwaukee, Boston, who's injured, Indiana with the Halliburton injury. Those are your 6, 7, 8 teams. I think Miami leaves the crop of teams they were in, which is 9, 10, 11, 12, which consisted of Miami, Toronto, Philadelphia, Chicago. And now the Heat leave that grouping and are now in the grouping of the injured teams, Milwaukee, Indiana, Boston, to where the Heat could put together a good regular season because they're a little bit better offensively, and they're ultimately a 6 seed or barely missing the top 6, and you're the 7 seed. And you're in the first team of playing. It gives you a better team. And if you wanted to compete this season while being able to still play a lot of your young guys like Ware, like Jovic, like Jaquez, like Larson, this was that in-between move that gives you the best of both worlds. It gives you a better roster to compete now. If it does not work out, you can flip Norman Powell at the deadline for a first-round pick, and you ultimately turn Kevin Love and Kyle Anderson to a first-round pick potentially, but you also get a lot of experience and playing time for your young guys off the bench. To me, I just don't know how you could say this is a bad move. Grade the trade for me, A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. I'm going to look to see what the Heat fans have to say. If you cannot tell with how greatly I have speaked about this deal so far, I have clearly given this an A grade. I think that is absolutely worth it because Norman Powell is a terrific basketball player and will add a lot to Miami. Let's round out the show with this. And we could talk about briefly what could be coming next for the Miami Heat. Obviously, Andrew Wiggins and Terry Rozier were the two players prior to this Norman Powell trade that were the most likely to be dealt off of this roster. Does that change? I think it does slightly. I think you would have to get a really good offer for Andrew Wiggins for me to fully want to trade him at this point. Like I mentioned, I think that starting five is legit. Powell, Herro, Wiggins, Bam, and Ware. That's a legit starting five, man. It's a legit starting five. Does Terry Rozier still have to be traded? Without a question, without a doubt. And you got to get off of that deal for a center. Because right now, your front court is Bam, Ware, Nikola Jovic. And no matter what you want to say about Kevin Love and Anderson, I'm very happy they're off the Heat's roster. Very happy. But they were your two front court depth pieces. And now you don't have any front court depth. Jovic is your only one. But we all know that Jovic is better as like a 3 or 4, like a wing almost, a wing forward, if you will, and not a true big man. So to me, you still got to add a backup center. We'll look to see who they could get there. But obviously the eyes are going to be on Andrew Wiggins and Terry Rozier, with it being more likely, in my opinion, that Rozier gets dealt because the front court needs more pieces. But maybe Wiggins gets dealt with the Lakers. And like I mentioned, that price tag went up in LA, man. With this trade, I'm no longer shopping Andrew Wiggins. I will listen on Andrew Wiggins, but I am not shopping Andrew Wiggins. So Los Angeles, if you want Wiggins, you got to pony up that 2031 first-round pick in Rui Hachimura. I don't even know if I want Dalton Connect anymore. I'm very high on him. I liked him coming out of the draft, but boy, did he disappoint a little bit last year. And I don't want to overact to Summer League because I'm not overreacting to Yakachonis. But Connect stinking it up in Summer League as a year 2 guy. That's not ideal. It's not ideal. But this is the final part we'll talk about on today's show, and it's the fact that you got to subscribe to the channel because when the Heat make a move, we will have you covered. Subscribe, join us for daily Miami Heat content and live shows when moves happen. When Wiggins gets traded, if Wiggins gets traded, if Rozier gets traded, we'll be going live on the channel. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Norman Powell, you are a Heatle.